Cloudy day today, and I can feel a few spots of rain. So, July, August. We've had a good summer so far, but it looks like things are getting a little bit unsettled again, which is fairly typical for this part of the world. Start of a brand new week after spending all last week at work. One of the first jobs I have to do every time I come here is turn all the alarms off on the boat. And I've got loads of them now. Right, going in, remind me before I start working, I've got to put a lens cover on that. I took it off. So we've got a bad track record when it comes to putting lens covers on this camera. So don't forget to remind me. So I'm going to start this week's work by just cleaning the top of this up. There's a load of junk on top of there, and I need it out of the way because we're going to finish welding this in place securely. What was that? Oh, lens cover. Thanks for reminding me. Back to being a bit cleaner on top. I've got the measure up there because we've been doing some measurements. We're having a look at some of the alterations we're going to be doing at the back, and I'm still debating these stairs. Here at the back, I'm having a look at that. And we're also just debating moving this transom back slightly to make a bit more space in the aft cabin. In the meanwhile, it's raining again, which is back to the normal. And I'm going to go upstairs and go inside so we can start doing some bits and pieces in the aft cabin while we get rained on. Nice little boat in there. You can see where the rain's been. Beaded up on here nicely, hasn't it, look? And hopefully those gaskets are holding well. We've got this top to do soon, and this front, that was just painted temporarily. We'll have to rake all that off again because we've got some repairs to do on the leading edge. Rachel's keen to do this. But we've got some kind of, I don't know what that is. I don't know, that's kind of an air vent or something. Not sure at all what that structure is in the middle. And then we've got these faces to do in the windows. I don't know whether we'll get a chance this season, but we'll see. What I didn't show you last time was the finished weld on here. I was that busy stressing and getting ready to go to work that I forgot to show you the actual finished project when we'd actually finished putting the welds in, but there it is. One of the tacks I want to do is that tack's just broke free from there. Wasn't a very good one, so I just want to kind of pull this together and tack that in place. Okay, there's that many little jobs that I need to do. It's difficult to know exactly where to start. I have been doing some bits off camera, and what I tend to do is if I've done something and I think I've made a mistake, I generally tend to crack on and do it without filming because I'm that fed up that I've made a mistake and I've kind of got to get caught up. I just bash on and get caught up. What's happened is I've put some welds on here, and obviously we've been doing this in little stitches just to try and keep the plate cool. Turns out though that the plate has been getting warm. And because it's such a big plate, I guess it only needs a little bit of heat for it to start to warp and buckle. What it did is, I didn't notice, is it did warp and buckle and broke one of the tack welds that I'd done on it. And then when I've welded all this in and been round the front, I've seen this big gap appear between the bathing platform and the transom. So I've just been grinding out some of the tacks and flattening it back into shape again and tacking it back in, and then adding some extra tacks as well because it was actually starting to buckle between tacks as well. So I've got a few more tacks in there and I'm kind of caught up now. The next job I've done without recording is I found one of the pieces of T-section in the back that didn't have a mouse hole in it to allow us to lead a weld. So I've just kind of used the die grinder to take that out, and I didn't film it, but I'll show you what I've done. So I've just been in here with the die grinder and made a little mouse hole so we can weld along this seam without any interruptions. And because I'm now a little bit conscious of warping and buckling plates, which is something I've had on my mind for a while, I don't want to put any more welds in, or no big welds, until I've got some stiffeners, some T-section supports that go along the back of this transom. I've been to the local steel stockists and they're out of stock, and a delivery won't turn up next week, and I kind of want to get cracked on. So I've gone to Divid Steels again. They're going to bring me some steel down. It's either going to come tomorrow or the day after. So I'm not going to do any more welding apart from the spot welding on this transom until I've put some of these T-sections in. So they'll be going from here, this is T-section, and they'll be going vertically upwards. And hopefully it'll stiffen up. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple more spot welds here, just to make sure we don't get the kind of warping that happened up here earlier on. We sorted this out now. So today is a day of little jobs. I've got a few bits and pieces to do. I've got some shopping to do. I need to go and get some welding gas because I'm nearly out. We need to try and source some of the steel that we need, the T-section. Hopefully that's turning up today. And then hopefully we can get on with some work because I've lots of welding I want to get done this week. I really want to kind of get on with this stern. The rains have been coming again, but the clouds have disappeared now and the sun shines out again. A little bit muggy, we like it like that. Okay, so I've got to get this off here, and somehow I've got to get it inside and into the boat with that little gap. Never thought about that. I'm not sure how we're going to get it in. We might have to carry it up the stairs. So getting the steel inside the boat is easier said than done. I guess I have the option of getting it upstairs. I can put it through the window or go through the back. But it'd be simpler if it'll just go in here. The only option I've got is where it'll slide through here. Somehow I don't think it will, but let's give it a try. Guess that's a no then. We're getting closer to that job that you've all been waiting for, and that's where we do the seam weld on the hull plate. There's a slight bit of extra prep work that I've got to do out of naivety when I first did this, and that's all those stiffeners and longitudinals that I've put in there are running over the seam, and I didn't put a mout hole in there. At the time when I did it, I was a little bit more naive than I am now. I'm still quite naive. I didn't think that would be a problem, but it turns out it probably will be. So I've got to put some mouse holes in there, and I've got the ideal tool for that. I've got the JCB electric die grinder, which is a piece of kit, I'm telling you. So I'm going to see if we can mouse hole out some of these using that, fingers crossed. This is the die grinder, the JCB die grinder. As I said, it's a piece of kit. I don't get paid for saying this, but I do have a discount link for you, and I do recommend these tools. They're benchmarked against all the biggies like DeWalt and Milwaukee and things like that, and they're cheaper. If you check out the link down in the description, and there's a code, there's a discount code. If you plug that in, you'll get 5% off. So let's get on with making those mouse holes. I've only got the one die grinder bit, sadly. I could have done with the pointed one because I left the others back at the garage, back at home. Luckily, there was one in the die grinder, but this should be good enough. Let's see how we get on. I'll start with this one first and see how we do. Quite honestly, the die grinder made light work of that. Now, if you remember rightly, I took these stiffeners out. These stiffeners, this is the old plate, this is the new plate, and I put stiffeners in that ran the whole length of the boat at the back, and then I removed them because we got the hump in the plate and things weren't symmetrical and they were just getting in the way. There's some bits of them left here. There's one here and there's one here, and what I want to do now is just want to get those bits out because we'll replace that with new stiffeners, and they're in the way of the weld. So fingers crossed they'll come out relatively easily. One of them's got a lot of weld on it. It's when I first got the welder and I was practicing and I wasn't happy, and I put about 50 welds on it. Hopefully that comes out okay. Now the issue is welds on both sides. Welds on both sides are really strong, which is good, but not when you want to take them out again. So we'll just put a little cut on there and hopefully we can bash it out. Right, we're part way through, mouse hold out. I've done that one, done that one, done that one. That one was already done. That's the centre. Watch your legs. Done this one. Done that one. Done that one. Done that one, which was a bit of a mess. That one doesn't need going because we took it out. We've just got that one to do at the end. And I think there's a couple underneath the laser welder that I've got to do. Still have a lot of prep work to do. I'll be honest with you, you don't realise the prep work's the thing that takes the most time. I know you out there, you're interested when we do the big stuff and things like that and finish things off. That's like about that much of the actual job. So all this prep work, all these bits and pieces, and every time I'm about to start doing a job, I realise there's something else that needs preparing first. Anyway, that's the way the job goes. Pretty soon though, we're going to be welding in these hull plates. That's going to be exciting. Good morning. Quick thank you to whoever sent us the earplugs. They'll come in really handy. No name came through again, but thank you anyway. If you want to make yourself known, send me an email or something like that.
For those of you that do buy something on our Amazon wish list and want to leave a message or let me know who you are, you just click the this item is a gift thing and it opens up a little message box that you can fill a message in and send it to us. Anyway, once again, thank you very much. Let's get on and do some work.
Right, back for a new day. Got my welding jacket ready, but let's just finish off those mouse holes first, and then maybe we can do some welding. Fingers crossed. So I've just had to move around with things. I've moved the laser welder up there, and I've realised we're not going to mouse hole these out. We need to take those out. I think those are the original. They go back to here. So hopefully we can just bash those out, and we don't need to mouse hole the top one, as I've said before, because the same there, we'll be replacing that chine. Okay, so a bit more bashing to do. And those are the original welds, which are a little bit smaller than mine, so hopefully they'll come out a little bit easier. The next step now is to make sure that the gap is 2mm. That's the ideal gap. I've been told for 4mm steel to do a good penetrating weld. I did try and set it at 2mm when I put the plates together. I was challenging. I put some 2mm discs between, and what I found is it doesn't look quite accurate, particularly after we spot welded. Some of the gaps look like they closed up and other gaps look a little bit wider. What I probably should have done was just made the plate meet and then run a grinder down there that's got a 2mm disc. Never mind, we'll do that now. I'm just going to run a 2mm disc on that gap to make sure we've got exactly 2 mils, and then we'll prep the steel up ready for a weld. So you can see that's beautiful, that's 2 mils. That's a bit tighter there, and definitely tighter there. It seems to be where the tack welds go in. And yeah, about 2 mils there. On the other side, this gap looks a bit bigger, but in actual fact, it's not. That's about perfect, about 2 mils. Same there, if we take the disc. So I'm going to run this down this gap. So we're drawing much closer to when we actually do this weld, which is going to be very, very soon, probably in the next half an hour. I've cut out that slit to make sure it's exactly 2 mils. I'm going to do it in sections though, rather than do the whole amount, because there's lots of tack welds in there, and I want to cut those tacks out. So we'll weld between the tacks, and then we can cut and grind those tacks out. So I'm going to clean it up now with a laser cleaner, and then fingers crossed, let's start welding. Let's see how it goes. Right then, let's do this puppy. There's the 2mm gap. You can see we're underneath the boat, and that is the bottom of the weld that we've done from above. So we've penetrated through. There's a little bit scabby down at that end, and I might just grind that out and redo it. That's where we first started, but now we've got good penetration, and of course at a later date we'll be putting a cat weld over this. We'll grind this back and put a weld on this side too. So we're almost halfway. Here's the keel. So a little bit more to do. The dodgy bit of the weld there is where I was welding with an open root, and I couldn't quite get it right. It just kept dropping through, and you got a really ugly penetration. And if I cooled it down too much, I didn't feel like it was penetrating enough. So I decided to use a backing plate. This is non-ferrous backing plate. It's thick aluminium, and that's been giving us a good fusion. We can get the weld nice and hot without it all dropping through. So here we are. There's the dodgy start. That was the stuff that dropped through. We might just grind that out and do it again. And then the welds have got progressively better as we've come along. And we're about to do this now. We're almost at the keel.
Look at these puppies. Thank you very much. Pete Barnwell, Amazon wishlist. I've been wearing them, Pete. Look, I promise. I use these when I'm working on the back of the boat with all the heavy steel. I tend to use my lightweight trainers when I'm inside, not managing steel. But when we're in the back in Heath House, those are the puppies. Thank you, Pete. Thank you to everybody that's contributed from the Amazon wish list, and for people who have contributed in any way, even if that's only watching. Thanks to our members. Got a new member too. I say new, been a member for a while. John Rising. Thank you very much. Thanks to all the members, all our Patreons, Amazon wishlist supporters, people who just watch, comment, give us a thumbs up, like, all that jazz. We really do appreciate the support. It does help. Anyway, got some more work to do. Okay, so it's time to progress with that hatch catch. And you remember in the last video I created a template to make sure that everything fit, and that seemed to fit pretty sweet. The next step then was to put in some of the other features, mainly the holes. And what I did is I took the previous catch off and measured up where the holes were, measured it from the middle, and I transferred those into the 3D CAD drawing. And we printed that off with a 3D printer. And this is what we ended up with. So I guess the next thing to do is just double check and make sure that fits onto the hatch that we've got. We need to see if our 3D printed part fits on this hatch. Now, this isn't one of the hatches from the front. This is one that's been off for a long time. This is from the aft cabin roof, the one that was broken into. And when they broke into it, they snapped this catch off here. So we'll just double check and we'll see if this fits. And I need to make sure that the holes line up. So I'll have to put you down. You might be able to see these holes line up absolutely perfectly. So a good bit of measuring there. So that is our 3D profile, and we've got the drawing in CAD now. And what I want to try and do is make this out of a better material, maybe aluminium. Now, a few of you spoke about other materials to 3D print it out of. That would be really good. It would be excellent if I could just 3D print this out of a plastic. And people mentioned carbon filament and Kevlar filament and things like that. The problem with 3D printed parts is that in order for it to be 3D printable, it has to be thermoplastic. And this is a structure that's going to be under load because there'll be a hatch catch here, putting pressure on the seals and the catch to hold it down. And it's also a security catch. It needs to not break. Sadly, carbon filament is strong, but it's also brittle and it tends to fatigue crack. But that's not the main problem. The main problem with printed filaments is because they're thermoplastic, they creep, particularly when it gets warm. So when this is under pressure and it gets warm, the actual shape will creep and will change and will distort. So that's not going to be good enough. So the easiest thing for me to do is to try and make this out of aluminium. And I've got just the toy.
Don't need someone to save me, no, and don't come running to blame me. From miles away I can tell that something's off. The way you look and how you pause when you talk, I think I said enough. You said your love for me something brand new. You said this is something you would never do. Here we are in your car, let me see who you are, who you really are, yeah. Don't need you here to say you're sorry, 'cause if you're gonna leave me then just do it. Don't take it slow, don't be gentle, no, I just gotta know. If you're gonna leave me then just do it. Let's be honest for a second. Yeah, you're being over your head, babe. 'Cause there is no one other than me that can make you feel the way.
So the next challenge is removing the part, look at that puppy, from the board. I use that Gorilla polyurethane glue, the original stuff, and you can't dissolve it with solvents or anything like that. So hopefully a bit of mechanical brute force, maybe some heat, who knows, let's see. Right, if you're wondering what we've been using, the indoor milling machine, this is the Makera Z1 if you're watching from America. I got this because it's much cheaper than the other two versions. They've got a Carvera Lite, I think, and the Carvera, which are a little bit pricier. This is a more affordable version, and it works really well, as you've just seen. Anyway, there is a link down below if you're interested in checking it out. I don't get any commission from it, but sometimes driving traffic to Makera inspires them to give me future discounts. Fingers crossed. Anyway, there it is. Check it out. Let's see if this fits. And there she is. the new hatch catch. Right, that looks pretty sweet. The only thing that'll make it look a little bit sweeter is perhaps a nice coating, a nice finish, a black anodized finish. I think that's probably going to be the way to go, but that's not for now. That'll be in another video. In the meanwhile, if you like the video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Please hit that subscribe button, click the bell icon, don't forget hype, and leave us a comment. And I'll see you very, very soon in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.